Guys, Godzilla month is finally over. Now let's get back to a wide range of movies to talk about. And let's start off with a face-off with Aquaman and Bumblebee. Now, admittedly, on the surface, these two movies don't really seem to have a lot of common, but there are a few things to take note of. First of all, both of these movies are the sixth installment of their respective franchises, Aquaman being the sixth film of the DCEU, and Bumblebee being the sixth installment of the live action Transformers films. Both films show a departure from the movies that happened in the past. Aquaman is known for being a lot more colorful and all around fun compared to some of the past DCEU films. Bumblebee, well, Michael Bay still serves as one of the producers, is directed by Travis Knight, who brought us Kubo and the Two Strings. And they both set a new tone and new direction for their franchises. Aquaman is the first of what appears to be several DCEU films that'll take a much more colorful and light approach to their films. Focus more on the standalone films than rather trying to build a big universe. Bumblebee sees a departure from like the big mess, way too long Michael Bay films to much more focused, more slightly more intimate films for the Transformers films, at least with Bumblebee. But of course, we have to make them face off. So let's begin. Round 1, the male lead. While both of these films can be described more as like buddy movies, they're named after their main character, Aquaman and Bumblebee. Aquaman, aka Arthur Curry, is the son of a lighthouse keeper and the Queen of Atlantis, Atlanta. That's her name, right? I know it's played by Nicole Kidman. Atlanta, yeah. He pretty much more or less lives on the surface through most of his life, doing some small heroing stuff, as we see in the beginning of the film. But then Mera, one of the princess rulers of one of the kingdoms in the sea, sort of like brings him in, like tries to get him to help overthrow his half-brother King Orm and become ruler of Atlantis before King Orm sets war against the surface world. And so through this film, Aquaman is a pretty kind of a badass dude. Like he's got some dramatic stuff, but he's also kind of a more lighthearted dude in certain scenes, which is a nice relief because some of the heroes of past films are either just way too serious or they're trying too hard to make them be a little bit more lighthearted. With Jason Momoa's Aquaman, it's a lot more natural. And then we have Bumblebee of Bumblebee, one of the main Autobots. We do hear him speak a little bit, but then early in the movie, the part of him that creates his voice gets pulled out, and now he's got no dialogue, save for like him finally learning how to use the radio in his body to do some speaking. And even though he doesn't really speak throughout most of the movie, he does obviously have a personality that works within the story and does help create a character narrative and story arc. And he is pretty entertaining to watch, I'm not gonna lie, in both some of the more comedic moments, but also in some more serious moments too, that really do hit home. Although, I do have to admit, I am going to have to give this one to Aquaman because we do see a little bit more of an arc, a little bit more all-around character work, and he is a pretty interesting character, seeing this is the first time we've actually focused on Aquaman in DC films. So this round goes to Aquaman. Round 2, the female lead. So like I said, both these movies can be more described as buddy movies, and with Aquaman and Bumblebee, there's Mera and Charlie. Mera is the princess ruler of Zabel, who is promised to King Orm as his wife, of course sneaks behind his back, tries to get Aquaman to try to fight him and reclaim the throne. And she's pretty badass, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I think she might be my favorite female DC character. Not just in movies either. Anyway, she has all these cool powers, like being able to create, I don't know what they call, like, water blast is that it. She does some really cool stuff with water that most other Atlanteans don't really seem to have, which is really cool and awesome. And in addition to being badass, she also has some for more dramatic moments as well. One slightly comedic moment that's also sort of supposed to be a little bit romantic too, which is a little bit more funny than romantic. And with Charlie, played by Heidi Steinfeld, we get a teenage girl, 18 years old, whose father passed away sometime recently, and she really hasn't been herself. And the movie does show that she's both an outcast in like the public world with like her high school friends and such, and also a little bit of an outcast in her home life as well. Her mother seemingly dating a new man. I think it's actually a stepdad, and of course a little brother, and they all seem to be trying to move along, try to be happy, and Charlie just can't really do that. Of course, she actually does seem to find her former self by working with and helping Bumblebee, which is a really great story arc for this character. Honestly, I really love both of these actresses and these characters. They're really great. Although, if I do have to be a little bit honest, Charlie from Bumblebee does go through a more well rounded arc and does a little bit more with the character that I would have liked to see in Aquaman with Mera. She's still awesome. I love Mera, don't get me wrong. But I'm going to have to give this one to Charlie from Bumblebee. Bumblebee takes the round. Round 3, music. So of course both movies have their original scores. And it's really based on personal opinion which one is probably best for original scores. Now let's talk about with the actual music that's used in the movie. Aquaman uses a couple of already somewhat famous songs. But then there's the one Ocean to Ocean by Pitbull that for the hook samples part of the song Africa by Toto. There have been a lot of memes of people going like, why did you do this to Africa? I'm kind of with them on that one. You don't need to do that. Sorry, it's a little bit cold here. So, yeah, that song probably wasn't the best. There's another song that was made more original for this movie called Everything I Need by Skylar Grey, which is a song that I really love. Now, as for the songs used in Bumblebee, most of them are some classic 80s songs, some probably not as classic, but still pretty good songs that work within the narrative of the story. And of course, Hailee Steinfeld also makes an original song back to life for this movie that really ties into the narrative and themes of this movie. And for that, I'm going to give this round to Bumblebee. Alright, sorry. My nose. Alright, round 4. Action. There is a lot of good, well-made action in Bumblebee. Transformers films in the past have been criticized for their action either being like not focused on in the scene that's shown in the screen, just happening in the background, or they're so goddamn close to your face you can't actually tell what's happening. With Bumblebee, that's fixed. Good widescreen shots, good focus, and some good actual action moments as well on the fundamental level. With Aquaman, there is a lot of action in this movie that a lot of it taking place underwater is actually really cool to watch. It's some stuff that really hasn't really been done much, at least in mainstream movies like this, that really do play with some of the effects that can be used in this kind of environment. And while the CG in Aquaman isn't always exactly convincing in how realistic it is, it's just so gorgeous looking, and it looks so great still, that you really don't care. And a lot of it's grand, intimate. There's a lot of fun to be had with the action of Aquaman. There's fun action in Bumblebee, but I'm going to have to give this one to Aquaman. Alright, let's go to round 5, the final round, the actual story of the film. Like I mentioned earlier, before this actual narrative of Aquaman, Atlanta and Arthur's dad, whose name I keep forgetting, create Arthur Curry, create, and then the actual narrative of Aquaman, Mera tries to get Arthur to help her overthrow his half brother King Orm before he sets war on the surface world. And after a failed attempt to try to dethrone him through combat, they have to now try to find the original trident of King Atlan. Atlan? Is that it? Yeah, Atlan. In order to try to get Arthur Curry to realize that he is the true king and like the hero Atlantis needs and deserves. With Bumblebee, it's a story of a Autobot that, in addition to get his voice cut out, sort of loses some of his memories, that finds a human, Charlie, and they're both sort of in a similar situation of being like outcasts, not really know what to do, and they sort of help, work, and build off one another, which is really helps towards their character arcs. And of course, you get some Decepticons trying to find Bumblebee. We get some nice action, and we get a good farewell between the two that's really heartfelt and wholesome. The story of Bumblebee is something that the Transformers movies needed for a while. Something intimate, wholesome, and just really well developed. Aquaman's story borrows a lot from Arthurian legends, anime, and even a little bit from Black Panther from some of the more die-hard Marvel fanboys that point out. And of course, that's what Aquaman really is. There's a lot of lore with this kind of character that hasn't really been used in any DC film before. Only right now we're finally starting to get a majority of DC films that aren't focused on either Superman and Batman. We've got a Wonder Woman movie before this, which was good. But Aquaman, there's so much more lore with this character and a whole new world, not just one island, that can be explored. And it does get explored a lot. And we get a lot of myth, story, legend. And while a lot of it can be described as like exposition dump, it's also set to some pretty cool looking visuals. They really don't mind that much. Bumblebee, we kind of already know like a lot of the lore and story of Transformers at this point. So it focuses more on the dynamic between Bumblebee and Charlie. Both of these stories tap into some unused potential for both franchises, which I really appreciate. And I really do love both these movies, surprisingly. I didn't actually expect to really love either of these films as much as I do, but I really do. But if I have to be honest, when it comes to Transformers, we've already sort of seen this kind of thing tapped into like in the past with like the original Transformers show and the original animated Transformers movie. A little bit anyways. With Aquaman, this hasn't really been seen any like DC film before, and it only tapped into a little bit in like past DC animated shows and movies. And seeing this much potential on the screen and how much it actually uses it and what can be further explored, I'm giving this round and the face-off to Aquaman. Now, like I said, I surprisingly love both these films. Honestly, this does come down to a bit of a personal choice. There are even probably going to be a day where I might change my mind and say Bumblebee, but right now I'm saying Aquaman. But Bumblebee is actually a really well-made film. And while it is pretty similar to E.T. in terms of like storylines and such, it has enough of its own unique twist on it as well. So, that's all I have to do right now. So let's look ahead to the month of February, and with a 2-year anniversary coming up in a couple weeks for this channel. So comment down below your thoughts on Aquaman and Bumblebee, like, subscribe, share, and I'll see you guys next time.